keynote speaker this morning. 3 years ago, Jeffrey Purtee was a speech evaluation contestant who could not seem to make it past the area level. Yet 2 years ago, he made it to the district finals, and last year, he won the district speech evaluation contest. How did he make that transformation? I bet you're asking yourself. Well, he developed a process to construct and deliver his evaluations, and you are going to learn that process today. Speaking on the topic, contest speech evaluations, 8 to 10 minutes. Please join me in welcoming Jeffrey Purtee.
Welcome to Toastmaster Evaluation Contest season. I know it's a time we all eagerly await to work on our evaluation skills and hopefully make it all the way to district finals. You've heard my history, and I would just like to share what I considered my biggest weakness as an evaluator when I started. I don't want to say I was an awful evaluator. I don't think I was awful, but I lacked a process. Consequently, all my evaluations seemed to me to be a bit scattered, a bit disorganized. I didn't think I was helping the speaker as much as I could. Then something happened to me. 3 years ago, I attended the district evaluation contest for my first time attending, and the keynote speaker was Lance Miller at www.lancemillerspeaks.com. He gave a presentation on speech evaluation that completely turned around my thinking on effective evaluation. Much of what I'm going to share today, many of the tools you will pick up today, came directly from his training. I encourage you to visit his site, pick up his tools if you get a chance. Really has some marvelous tools out there. I'm going to cover 3 topics today. You're going to pick up tools in 3 areas: fundamentals of speech evaluation, delivery, and contest tips. I've put together the very helpful mnemonic, FUDICO, so you can remember that. FUDICO, I know you'll never forget that. Let's cover fundamentals. Are we have any Star Trek fans here? Space, the final frontier. Star Trek has a prime directive. The short version of the prime directive is you will negatively impact no alien cultures. I have my own prime directive as an evaluator, and that is this. Your speaker must feel better about himself at the end of your speech evaluation than they did before your speech evaluation. This is key, and it's key for several reasons. First, this is an adult learning group. Frankly, if you're not getting warm and fuzzies here, if you're not enjoying yourself, if you're not getting support, you're not going to come back. So for no other reason than to keep members coming, you want to be supportive and upbeat and make those speakers feel good. Second, frankly, is that you are more amenable to suggestions if you think that your evaluator has your best interest in mind. And if your evaluator has started off by saying nice things about you, you're going to be much more attuned to offer to accept some suggestions that may be. And thirdly, frankly, I just think it's the right thing to do. We want to support each other, we want to be positive, and we want to be upbeat. That is my prime directive. Your speaker must feel better about themselves after your evaluation than before your evaluation. But I actually have 3 fundamentals. That was the first one. The second one, when you are thinking about your evaluation, I always imagine if this speaker had to give this exact same speech 1 week later, what are the key things I could say that they could give that speech better just 1 week hence? Not a year hence, not forever, just next week. What that prevents me is from overloading the speaker. If they only have 1 week to work, that forces me to say, what are the 1, maybe 2 key items? That's it. Third, evaluations are given to help both the speaker and the audience. So where you can, I always try to turn my suggestions or even my commendations into a little mini educational about why this is important, how you can do to change it. So those are my 3 fundamentals. Speaker must feel better about themselves. Imagine the person giving the same speech next week. What are you going to do to help them? And try to turn your evaluation into a mini educational if you can. Now, let's move on to delivery. Delivery is where most of this comes directly from the tips I got from 2005 world champion Lance Miller. So I want to give credits where it's due. And this is where I've been able to most improve. Let me ask you this. Have you ever heard an evaluation? The evaluator comes up, they've got a whole bunch of papers, they're kind of scattered around. That was a good speech, Stephanie. I think you should work on maybe your vocal variety. You really would have helped your vocal variety. Now, you did have a good voice, but it really needed some help on vocal variety. And one other thing on your introduction, see what I'm saying? There's no pattern to it. There's no rhyme. It's as if they're in this free form flowing of ideas without giving the speaker an idea of how they can really improve. When I do an evaluation, and especially when I do a contest evaluation, I only come up with a half sheet of paper, always. I don't bring the book. There's a reason for that, because if you come up with a whole book, you slap it on the podium, right away the speaker is on the defensive. They're thinking, oh my gosh, how many suggestions are I going to get? I come up with just a half sheet of notes. Now I always get the question, should I come up with no notes? In my opinion, no. To me that borders on showmanship. Bring some notes up so that you can refer to them. I see speakers evaluate without notes. If you can do it well without notes, fine. I would prefer everybody bring up at least a little bit of notes. I structure every evaluation exactly the same. I have an opening. I offer 2 commendations. I'll get into that in a minute. I offer 1 or 2 recommendations. I close with a commendation, and then I finish with a summation. So you have an opening, 2 commendations, 1 to 2 recommendations, another commendation, finish with a summation. I'm even more specific about it. My 2 commendations, I start with the second best and the third best. Then I start my first recommendation with the second best, my second one with the most important. And then my third commendation is the key commendation I'm going to give. And that just structures the way people think. They tend to remember the most recent things most recently. And my summation wraps up what I did. Let's go over these keys. My opening is always the same. Rook. What a wonderful speech. I never realized what a connection there was between the Area 51 aliens and Elvis. You can always open with some kind of fun comment or thing that gets the speaker relaxed. Now, if this is a book speech, I will then immediately cover the book objectives, because in Toastmasters, as you know, we always evaluate per the book. I don't need the book to do that, though, because you've studied the speak objectives. I'm just going to briefly summarize them here. So I always have the opening, cover the speech objectives. Now, in a contest, we don't have book objectives. So you just heard my opening. Then I go right into my first commendation. Rook, I want to commend you for the way you used vocal variety in your imitation of the great Elvis Presley. The reason that works so well, now, notice something here. My commendations always have the same pattern. I always start off with an issue that went well for you, and then I explain why it worked. The reason that works is vocal variety really grabs your audience. It really excites them. It keeps them from falling asleep. And that's it. One of the worst things you can do is repeat yourself a lot when you're giving an evaluation. I do 2 commendations, then I go right into my 1 or 2 recommendations. A recommendation always has 3 components. I state an issue that could be improved, explain why it didn't work, and make a suggestion for how it could be improved. Rook, when you came up dressed as Elvis, it really didn't work for me because it distracted from your speech content. I would suggest that you, for a contest speech, simply wear ordinary business attire, again, because it distracts from the importance of your message. Now, that's the kind of commendation that you can ignore or take, but you see the structure. I'm explaining what I think could be improved, why it didn't work, and what I suggest you may do to improve it. So I have the commendations, the recommendations. I finish with the finest commendation. And this is key for a contest. I have won a lot of contests I should not have won simply because I did this item. And if you pick up no other tip, from what I'm sharing today, pick up this. Leave 15 seconds to do a summation. A summation is worth 15 points on the ballot. You cannot believe how often you see people in evaluation contests just wrap it up when they have time and say, thank you. If I'm a judge, sorry, that's a 0. That's a tough thing to overcome. 0 points when there's 15 available. So I always use the tag word to summarize my comments. The reason I use the word summarize is because some judges may not catch other words like conclude, to wrap up. I want them to see the word summation. I want them to hear from my mouth summary. So they're getting ready to go, here we go. I'm ready to give them his 15 points. Then I briefly summarize what I suggested, my recommendations, and finally I always conclude with a positive. Rook, that was one of the most interesting speeches I have ever heard. I will never be able to look at Elvis the same way again. Finally, contest tips. I want to leave you with just a couple of tips to help you win the contest. This really is contest specific versus just an ordinary evaluation. All the other tips are things I do on every evaluation. Look for things that other evaluators will miss. If it's obvious the man needs work on vocal variety, and you're competing against 5 others, do you think every evaluator is going to comment on vocal variety? Yes! Do you think there's going to be any benefit if you get up there and comment on vocal variety? No. So don't waste your precious time commenting on something every other evaluator is going to comment on. Try to look for something unique. Finally, delivery can really be key. Be enthusiastic, be excited, be just thrilled with the opportunity to provide some help for your speaker. If you follow all these tips, I think that I will be honored to be rooting for you at the district finals this year.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey Purtee. If I could ask you to spend a few moments writing any feedback for Jeffrey, or you can use this time if you're an evaluator to rewrite your evaluations for the second half of our meeting. I really learned a lot with that. I think that was